Wednesday, October 25th, Commissioners meeting.
Good morning, everybody. It is 9 a.m. I'd like to call our meeting to order for Wednesday, October 25th. And we have Commissioner Miller and myself, Keith, the administrator, Karen, the clerk, and the audience this morning. Commissioner Peck is out on personal leave, so with that, if you join me with the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Our first item this morning is Matt.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. How are you this morning? How are you, Commissioner Miller? Normally I talk loud, but I'll move this a little closer. Consistent with the board's agenda, today's public hearing for the proposed surplus of county-owned property through the motor vehicle and sheriff's funds is being held in accordance with RCW 36.34 and is an opportunity for the board to receive public testimony and admit any evidence offered for or against the propriety and advisability of the proposed action. And based on the read-aheads, there's a few vehicles in there that we are recommending to be surplus via public auction. So with that,
You say two?
Excuse me?
How many vehicles?
There's multiple vehicles.
Looks like seven evidently out of your 7 out of your fleet and 4 out of the sheriff's fleet?
Correct.
Okay. This is a public hearing, hearing that opening statement. Anybody have any comments they'd like to share with us this morning? For or against this surplus? Seeing that, we'll close the public hearing. Commissioner, do you have any concern?
No, I do not have any concern with that, so I'll go ahead and motion to declare surplus county-owned property, Resolution 2007-320, Public Works and Sheriff vehicles.
Authorize me to sign the title?
Yes, you can send the sentence.
Second, all in favor? Aye.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I do have the titles, and I apologize. Instead of doing my job when I first got here and turning these into Karen, I was gabbing. So, if you don't mind, I'll hand these down. And there's X's on there, so there'd be signature on both sides of those for you.
We have missed them in the past on some of them.
Yeah, and you can do those and let us know when they're done. We'd be more than happy to come down and get them at a later time.
Yeah.
If it works better.
Okay, let's do that. Anything else for us this morning, Matt?
That's all I have for today.
Okay. Any questions for Matt while he's here? Pretty quick.
No, I talked about one question earlier, and you guys are working on it, so that's good.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks.
Great. Thank you. Thanks for your time. Thanks.
Next item on our agenda is the Franklin County Noxious Weed. Todd?
Morning. Morning.
My office manager ran back to get a piece of paper right quick. She'll be here shortly, but I'll go ahead and get started. Our the budget that we are presenting is what our board has approved, and I'm bringing it, presenting it to you for your approval and review. The first thing, probably the biggest portion of our budget is our payroll, and so I'll kind of run through that, what we did, changes we've made, and so forth. We're looking at, for myself, the office manager and the lead inspector, a 2% cost of living increase. And we have two younger employees that have been through their probationary period. We've decided to bump them up $1 an hour to where they're, hopefully we'll be able to keep them a little longer with that kind of increase. Our crew has worked pretty well together over the last year and a half. We've covered a lot of ground, and I think all of us kind of educated each other a little bit as we've gone along. So got a lot of area to cover, so we kind of feel that it's necessary to have this size of a staff in order to cover the area adequately. Our benefits are essentially the same as everybody else in the county. I think we've questioned human resources as to any changes in that. We've got those reflected in the budget. If you look at the spreadsheet that we sent with our budget on it, we can compare our 2018 salaries with our 17 salaries. Basically, what I have mentioned there is the differences. Any questions on that portion of it?
I see the net assessments have just gone up 4,000, and that's basically the parcel changes.
Yeah, it's the number of parcels. I assume probably more likely in the city and that. So we've, at the same time, I guess we've kind of lost a few of the rangeland parcels as they've been combined. So kind of a
Subdivision show up or something.
adds quite a few more. So, insofar as our other expenses, our next biggest portion of our budget is the road spraying program. We have I've kind of changed the numbers. If you look on the budget 2018 line on that at the top there, it kind of shows the chemical and communication operations supplies were our total there, and that fits into our budget on the supplies under chemical. That's reflected in there. Our roadside program this year was kind of modified due to the amount of road work and repairs that were done this spring, so not quite as sparkling as we'd like to see, but it's kind of the product of a lot of rainfall this year, and kind of affecting our herbicide effectiveness. So. We have made some adjustments to our chemical mix for this coming year. I think we're going to move everything to a spring application starting in February, with the hope that Public Works will be able to get their roadside shoulders pulled and have that prepped and ready to go. so that we'd be able just to move through as quickly and efficiently as we can through it, and thereby extending our residual through a little further into the season. Hopefully we don't need to go back and do a contact application later on, so we'll see how that all plays out, but that's the plan on that. One new item we've added to our budget this year with the hopes of improving our noxious weed control out on some kind of remote areas of the county. We've added a cost share program where landowners can apply, and at this time we've got 4 species of weeds involved in that program. We may decide to trim that down just for the simplification of a first year run, and then expand it back up later on as we kind of get our feet under us on it.
What weeds are those? The 4 to begin with? The
4 to begin with are rush skeleton weed, yellow star thistle, diffuse knapweed, and Scotch thistle. So those are the ones that we have noticed a considerable growth in the amount of and the population of throughout the county. So
What are you going to dwell on this year to start with?
I think we'll probably be, our primary focus is going to be on the yellow star, because we've spent a lot of time in the past several years, landowners applying and doing the work on, I don't know, several thousand acres up along the Snake River, primarily kind of in that area. So, and it's with the rainfall and stuff that we've had this year, it's really come back with a vengeance. So, something we need to have a little extra incentive for the guys to go out. With wheat prices kind of down, that's kind of their major source of revenue to fight that battle. So, thought this cost share might spark a little bit more interest and maybe hopefully get a little bit more accomplished down that line. So,
I know you had planned on meeting with the attorney's office. Did you get a chance to do that? Did you have any input from them that surprised you?
It was reviewed and approved by the prosecuting attorney's office. I guess we kind of went in and described it to her as a contract, but it's actually basically an application to be a part of the program. So, at any rate, what her comments were that basically it was very consistent with what Columbia County has done. So we've used them as our template for this program. They've had pretty good success. One of the things she mentioned, as we talked to her, we were thinking of using all 4 species of weeds, and one of the things she mentioned it having a more directed approach, single species to go after might help have to be a little more consistent, I guess, throughout.
So, you know, I visit a lot of farmers, and of course, this is a big complaint, the weeds.
Mm-hmm.
The weeds like on Klamath and basis E170, the kochia.
Right.
I mean, it's just going gung-ho, it's getting worse, it's getting thick, it's bad. You know, you talk about we spray once, and the people that I talk to out there, they suggested a cost sharing program.
Mm-hmm.
They suggested maybe 2 vehicles and doing it twice as much because you can't get around with one.
Mm-hmm.
These type of things, of course, it's going to cost more, but I think they're willing to pay more on their assessment to get these weeds controlled. Because you go to other counties, and some counties are worse, some counties are clean. And, you know, I think maybe looking at something else to be more effective, because just one residual in February may not catch, it may not work, or maybe it's just not long enough. But I really would like to emphasize that we need to see more of this work done, maybe something out there, because it is a mess, and I know, and then it causes the road barrier problems when you get those weeds. So you know, it sounds like you're going towards that way, you're trying this cost share program. And then we were able to get there earlier to start. Of course, that's weather permitted. So, that's the big complaint I hear. And I just went out there in the last month and I swear everybody right about that. 20 people.
Yeah, and that's
25%.
the kochia specifically is a more difficult weed to control because the majority of it is in the irrigated areas, more sensitive crops to work around and so forth. That's, you know, we do, in our mix, we do have for that area, for the sensitive side of the county, irrigated side of the county, we do have a product that will give us that control. The problem, more often than not, is the fact that we have overwatering from irrigation coming onto the roadside or close to the road, and that overwater a lot of times will flush that herbicide down.
Some of it, you know, is canals in between the road, and you know, you see the kochias are terrible still. Maybe road district should be involved in some of this, irrigation district.
Yeah, they have been doing more. I'll say that for them in the last 2 to 3 years than what they have done prior to. So they're changing personnel and a little different attitude about how they handle things, planting more grass and trying to have something there to compete with the kochia. It's just something they're working on. So I think that's going to be a tough weed to gain a lot of traction on over the long haul. But I think this is something that could potentially involve that area as well. I mean, like I say, I'd like to focus on the yellow star for this year. That's not to say.
Realize that cost share he's talking about is for the dry land and yellow star.
Yeah, what we did, it is, okay, but they talk about even irrigation to do the cost share. They talk, that's what they talk about. You know, we started that program for a while ago for the Yellow Star, which is, I'm glad you're on that one, because that could be terrible, potentially too, it could be really dangerous. In the tackling, of course, you know, these are the big ones in irrigation.
Yeah, and that's something too that we do address with the roadside mix, and it's again, it's a tough one too. It's where there's more traffic, that's where that's
probably one of the most talked about issues out there is the weed problem on roads. You know, it's probably your department, what you do is probably one of the most talked about things, the number one list everywhere to go. So it's important.
Yeah, it's something that we've heard a lot of complaints over the years about, and that's kind of how we got into it, I guess. So I think we put a fair amount of thought into what we do to try and keep it cost effective and yet still get the weeds, the majority of the weeds controlled. So it is a work in progress for sure.
Yeah, it's hard to take care of its fields anyway. It doesn't really matter.
Right.
I mean, you do all you want.
There's definitely areas of the county where it's probably almost unnecessary for us to spray because the guys are spraying right out to the road, and it looks beautiful.
Exactly.
And they want it clean so that it's not blowing across their fields, but other areas not so much. So anyway, that's kind of the gist of it. We're going to massage this cost share program a little bit, and over time, hopefully, we'll be able to do a little more with it. Kind of run down through the balance of our stuff as our time's kind of running short here. We kind of made minimal changes through the rest of our budget, just to kind of balance things and reflect better how we're using these lines of our budget. One of the things we put in the budget specifically for the cost share was to have $50,000 of reimbursable chemical to buy chemical if landowner doesn't have a pesticide license or needs some help with that. But it's basically just a reimbursement, so it's an in and out expense. So our cost on the cost share would be around $25,000 is kind of what we're planning for, and that's what it pays back to the landowner is going to be contingent on how many acres they do and what weeds they're going after. So.
Could you say in effect, maybe another thing by doing a cost share with the irrigation side here, and maybe you do the first application, you can do the second application or something, because that's to get complaints, it continues as the water is always hitting, in certain areas, the seed keeps going. Seed keeps producing.
Right, the kochia comes from seed, so it's something that every time, if the seed is there, which most areas that's irrigated is going to be there, and it's going to keep coming.
Yes.
We have come across a mix that we've done a demonstration on out along 395 and Blanton and Eltopia West in that intersection that was dealing with kochia, and it did very well. It's not really geared really towards the irrigated side, because there is some product in there that has a potential of movement or could potentially get us into trouble there. But it is a good mix, and we'll keep looking for something along that lines that we could use for out in that area as more of a residual type product. So. We're the last thing down on my list here. Our reserve, we've done our best to try and kind of make use of that fund. We've expected to be just a little bit lower this year than what we had last year's budget time. Part of that due to the cost share payout. I think that's trying our best to make use of that money the best way we can and get the most good out of our assessment. So, any other questions that I can answer on this?
Good recap on it, thanks,
All righty.
Thanks. Keep looking forward on the weeds and irrigators.
Okay. Will do.
Thank you.
You bet. Thank you.
Yeah, right here. Okay, so we have a resolution here, it's approval of 2018 budget for the Franklin County Noxious Weed Board, and resolution 2018, and number on that. So that's a motion, approval of 2018. Aye. Good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for having me here this morning. I'm Tricia McFarland with Mirror Ministries. I don't know if you remember, hopefully I was here a year ago, so I'm not going to repeat a lot of that same information. I did make it short because Commissioner Peck had a lot of questions last time, so you guys will have to fill in that time. Thanks for having us here. So we work hand in hand with Tri-Cities Coalition Against Trafficking, which is an interagency coalition with law enforcement from both counties, each city, social service agencies, nonprofits, people just trying to figure out how we can work best to find the victims and survivors of sex trafficking, serve them better, and hopefully also find the perpetrators of these crimes and prosecute them and get them put away somewhere where they're not hurting people. Our mission is to respond to domestic minor sex trafficking with the love of Christ through local education, intervention, and restoration. So we're doing that through education, awareness trainings, through local businesses and agencies around town, sometimes even just small groups and homes. We're also doing that by walking hand in hand with victims and survivors of sex trafficking. So they call in, we have a 24/7 hotline they call in on, and we also get referrals through different agencies, law enforcement, and social service groups. Just so we're aware of what we're talking about, definition of sex trafficking, we will go back to that. That is the use of force, fraud, or coercion to exploit a person for commercial sexual activities. Commercial being anything exchanged for value, doesn't have to be cash. Sometimes we talk about things like survival sex. You know, she's just doing it for drugs, or he's just doing it for a bed to sleep in, or whatever. If that's still something exchanged for value, that could still possibly be trafficking. If it's someone over the age of 18, you still have to prove that force, fraud, or coercion. That's what makes the difference. But if you note if you note the or, any person under the age of 18 involved in any sort of commercial sex, that is human trafficking by definition, not only locally but internationally. Well, I should say nationally. It's relative to that internationally, but the age can change a bit. So once we have a child involved, there does not have to be proof of force, fraud, or coercion. Our government believes that the age is indicated of not being able to do that, give that consent. We are bringing those trainings, presentations, and awareness out because as we talk about sex trafficking, it is a hidden and underreported crime. It's typically happening in plain sight all around us, but we're just not noticing it, not seeing it. A lot of things are set up online, so we're not seeing necessarily where you used to see people walking the street down on A Street, and you knew where the strip was to look. You're not necessarily seeing that anymore because it's on Facebook, Backpage, Craigslist, apps like Snapchat are being used to set up dates for these things. So we go out, we do trainings, no charge. We bring them just some examples up there. We have done over 105 trainings just this year, or I should say trainings, presentations, or awareness events. So awareness events, for instance, we're out at Family Expo or the Cinco de Mayo Festival with booths. We've been out to all the hotels in the Bi-County area, twice now this year actually. And we've done presentations at places like Rotary and Kiwanis. And we're going out and doing trainings at, we did pastoral school nurses. We've done classes at WSU or CBC and done Catholic Family Services, CPS, wherever they call and ask, and wherever we can get out into, we're bringing training out. We have trainings for kids as young as preschool. We just don't talk about sex trafficking. At that point, we talk about tricky people, how they can be aware of the tricks they're trying to do and ways that they can prevent that, and who are the safe people in their lives. We also have, it goes up through high school. We can do trainings directly to the students, or we do them also to staff members. Communities and schools has been a great resource to get out and get to a lot of the kids in the after-school programs also. People are always asking about numbers. These right here are estimates. This is a study done by New Edge Marketing. It's from back in 2013. Nothing newer has been done yet. That is an estimate, but what they did was they extrapolated out of national studies, taking nationwide numbers, statewide numbers from Seattle, Yakima, Tri-Cities, trying to estimate how many victims we're talking about, because we can't get reports from the traffickers and perpetrators and pimps. They're just not sending us their information in. They believe that there could be up to 234 kids being prostituted at any given time in the Tri-Cities. We're not seeing that right now. So where are they? That's part of our job, is we're doing outreach, trying to find new places where we can find them and see them. But the places that they see these, and the reason they came up with these estimates, is the number of gang members and activity in bi-county area. Number of runaways. Runaways to be picked up by a trafficker within the first 48 hours. Once you're hungry, cold, scared, somebody can come up and offer you a warm meal, a warm place to sleep, someone to be safe and protect you. But that's just a coercive way of getting you under their care. Other huge populations that are at risk are homeless kids or kids in the foster care system. When we talk about not being able to get hard data, foster care system is one that I can give you hard data on. Out of rescued kids nationwide, kids that have been rescued out of sex trafficking, they're looking at about 80% of those having been involved in the foster care system. That's a pretty big vulnerability. Yeah.
Are you saying that those kids were used while in the foster care system, or that precipitated their being?
I'm saying that they were part of the foster care system, and then they were also sex trafficking victims. So there's different studies trying to look at what that means. There is some happening within the foster care system because there's bad guys everywhere. We also have really good people in the foster care system, so I don't want to villainize the foster care system. What I'm villainizing is us as a society, we have throwaway kids. We're not paying enough attention to these kids and watching over them. So what our kids are telling us is they have a price tag on their head as a foster care kid. They know that. Even if they're in a good family, but especially if they're in a bad one, they know that they're a price tag to that family. So when they run away and somebody else offers to take care of them and they suddenly realize they're a price tag to that person, what's the difference? They feel empowered thinking that they're making that choice to stay with that person because they love them or something. So that vulnerability is where it's really high. That being said, we also have a lot of kids we're working with that are from families like yours and mine. They've been tricked, they've been coerced, they've somehow fallen into the wrong hands. A lot of what we're seeing is gang trafficking, and the kids may not be in the gangs themselves, but they're being, maybe they're being offered protection from someone because they're getting bullied, and then now they're being trafficked. A lot of it happens to kids ages 12 to 13 is the average age of entry. So if you talk about that age frame and you think of the development of the mind, there's not a lot of cause and effect relationship built up in there at that point. We're seeing kids go to parties, something gets dropped in their drink, and drink being like a Coca-Cola or a water, and they wake up the next morning to find out that there's videos and pictures of them being gang raped, and it looks like they're taking part in this. Not always gang, but things happening to them. They're then threatened and told, if you don't continue to do what we're telling you, then we're going to give these pictures to everybody in school, we're going to show them to your dad, we're going to show them to your pastor. And in their young minds, and even sometimes our mature minds, they think, I'm going to do this so they leave me alone and I'll be free. But the next day it happens again and again and again. So that coercion just keeps going. So we're talking about those statistics, we have the estimates, but people still want to know what are we really seeing. Our Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force is working nonstop, but they have limited resources, just like everyone. A couple years ago, so 2 boat races ago, went on to Craigslist, I think it was that time, and for 20 minutes they were on when they found 5 kids here in our hometown within 20 minutes on one page being sold for sex. They had to shut down at that point because it takes a lot of resources to be able to continue these cases and to be able to bring them to court and to justice. That's a pretty short time frame for that to find those kids. Just recently, you've seen in the last few months, many more cases coming forward. The internet sting on the Net Nanny with 26 men arrested. Many of you probably knew some of those people that were arrested and maybe were a bit shocked and surprised. They're ordinary people doing some things that they shouldn't be doing and harming a lot of other people. People were upset by those ads because it was parents advertising their children for sale, and they thought that was really important for law enforcement to do that. The reason they got so many responses to those ads is those ads were not unordinary. The kids I'm working with, the majority of them, their first pimp was mom or dad. That's the people they're supposed to be able to trust, the people that are supposed to be protecting them. Law enforcement arrested and brought to trial 26 men in that case, but they had thousands of responses going back and forth on those 5 ads that they placed for 72 hours. So is there a problem? There definitely is. We're doing our best to get out and find out where they are. When we find, when we get referrals, when we get calls in on our hotline, we have a hotline that's manned 24/7, womaned actually. We have live advocates that will come when called, will respond when the calls are made. It's not an answering service, it is an advocate that's going to answer that call. We are seeing approximately 5 new calls in each week, each month. We are seeing 5 new calls or referrals coming in. They're not all kids. Some of our kids have been lucky enough to grow up. Actually, in the last, one of our most recent cases was somebody my age, which is 50. The fact that she's still alive after a life of exploitation is fairly astounding. Shared Hope International suggests that the average lifespan of someone in the life of prostitution or being prostituted is about 7 years because of suicide, murder, abuse, diseases, etc. When you look at the average age of entry of being 12 to 13, that makes the ones that we're working with that are over 18 a miracle in themselves. The survivor skills they've honed in are pretty amazing, but they don't really help them well in what they call the square world, which is where you and I live. So part of what we do with our advocate services is just helping them learn some of those life skills, walking alongside them and helping them to learn what are some of the coping skills you can use in what we would like to call the real world, the healthy world. Now that you're out of the life, let's find healthy ways for you to live. Let's find healthy ways for you to cope. Let's get you connected to counseling. We have support group, art therapy. We try to get them reconnected into healthy community. So if they're interested in religion, we'll help them get connected to a church or organization that fits what they're interested in and fits them. If they're interested in piano, we'll get them connected to piano lessons. If they love to sing, we'll help them get into somewhere where they can just build more healthy community around them. For a lot of them, we're needing to place them out of the community. So we have a network of organizations we work with throughout the nation and a couple within the state. Nothing for children within the state, just for a couple for adults. We do have some families that we're working with here in private homes that are being safe home type restoration places for us. So we're still working with the clients, but we now they're able to stay in the community, but in a undisclosed private home. It's actually been pretty amazing how it's been working out so far. If we could just clone these particular families and make that happen some more, would be great. What we're seeing right now, as I mentioned, we have an active caseload of about 30 clients any given month, and we're seeing about 5 new per month. This month right now we have 35 active clients. Franklin County accounts for 15 of those, and 8 of those 15 are teenagers. About half of those are tied.
Meet with them on the street, or do they come to your office and meet with them?
We have a little teeny tiny office we've been paying $1 a month rent on. We're currently working on getting an outreach center. So that's, if you look in the budget, you'll see our rent significantly increases this next month or next year. We try and get them to come in, once again building that community and that support group. So we want, the healing helps when you're with someone else who's been through what you've been through. So if we can get them together in support groups, in art therapy, etc., that's perfect. Some of them, if they're very active in the life or active in the gangs, or we don't necessarily want them hanging around the other clients quite yet, we will meet them out within the community. So our advocates are probably out on the street in the community at least half of their day, if not 3/4 of the day on a given, So what we're asking for, we've been busy enough that we now have 2 full-time advocates. Their salaries are approximately $50,000 a year. That's including benefits and everything, so that's why I have that 45 to 50. We're currently doing a Benton County contract for $33,000 per year for this year and next. And we are asking once again for Franklin County to look at supplying $10,000 of that towards one of the advocates' yearly salary to help with those. And I rushed through a lot of that, but if you have questions, I would love to.
Obviously, it's a great service. As far as the revenue at this particular point, we just started budgets the last few days, so we don't know where we're at. So at this point, I don't know anybody else, but I don't see where we can commit yet at this point until we get to the bottom line of our budget. So.
Right.
And I would agree, at this point with the budget, it's hard to just say yes, at this point, but we can put it in the budget and see how this comes along. I will tell you, this is a very good program, very good. I mean, we read about it, we see it, we hear it, and all of us have kids, grandkids, and it's just the strangest ways that certain kids can get involved somehow, and you won't even know it. So this is an excellent program, and it's really a project for doing this.
Thank you.
Let's ask a couple questions. What's your relationship with the support, the Senior Resource Center, SARC, I think they call it, My Friend's Place, and some of these other groups that are somewhat doing, or focused on the same mission, but probably do it in a little different way? Are they part of that Tri-Cities Coalition?
So all of those you mentioned and many others are part of the Tri-Cities Coalition Against Trafficking. So we all try to work hand in hand towards the best needs of the client. So we may have common clients, quite often have common clients, and sometimes as a client comes in, we call them clients rather than victims or survivors. They are victims and survivors, but we don't want them to have to identify that way all the time. So when they're first identified, they may just feel the need to go to one agency or another for their primary needs. My Friend's Place is our only youth shelter at the moment in the Tri-Cities, and I say at the moment, I don't foresee anything else coming real soon, but so if we have a youth who is not part of the foster care system, that's one of the places that we work with well. We've done trainings in there for them, and then they refer when they have kids and need a little bit more. So if we have a survivor staying at My Friend's Place, for instance, they've got the overnight care, the shelter, all of the services they have. They still need our advocates to be taking care of that kid a lot throughout the day and getting them back and forth to services. SARC has been around, I think we're at a 40-year anniversary for SARC now, so they've been doing great work for a long time in the community, and they have just recently started up a specific advocate also for sex trafficking. And you asked about somebody else in the list.
My Friend's Place.
Okay, and My Friend's Place, yeah. So, and Juvenile Justice Center, we work with them. They do referrals to us, not only with kids that have been in detention, but also some of them that they're trying to deter and just try and get on track when they can see that things are going downhill fast. So once the community is educated on what the red flags are to look for, what it might look like and how to spot it, more eyes and ears are available to report things to law enforcement. Our law enforcement needs more eyes and ears out there because it's not something that people are it's not an obvious thing that's happening. It's behind closed doors. So the more that we can bring out that education and awareness to the community, then we have more eyes and ears to be able to report that. Also, then intervention is going to come earlier for those victims, hopefully, But even more, hopefully, we're going to prevent a lot of victims because of that. So the ones we're working with, it's a long, long time of healing because of that trauma.
So I'm sure you accept individual contributions.
Yes.
And what is your level at that now? For
Level of individual contributions? Oh, I should have had him put the other one in. Well, I can tell you we have to work backwards because the budget is not my strong suit. That's why we have the treasurer and all of them to do that. But we have 90,000 covered right now for next year, and out of that is 33,000 out of the county. So the rest would be individual churches, a grant through We Raise, Wheat Ridge, but that was also individual contributions that go into that, an online campaign. So tomorrow morning we have a fundraising breakfast that's free if you guys want to come. I give you an invitation. Come on over.
What's your breakdown between male and female victims?
So what we're working with right now is almost all female. We have a couple of guys we're working with, one transgender. We believe, actually we know from ICAC, Internet Crimes Against Children, and from hearing from the clients we work with, that there's a lot of guys out there. We're working hard on finding ways to get to them. Where there's a lot of stigma placed on a girl who's been in the midst of this, we tend to call them the whore, look down on them rather than the people who are abusing them. So much more so the stigma on guys. A man's supposed to be strong and in control. We think of men being the ones in control in a sexual situation, but the reality is our bodies are wired to respond, period. They then feel dismayed because they must have enjoyed it, because their body responded, but it's just a reality, and it's part of the education process. Your body is wired to respond. It's not your fault. You're still a victim. It doesn't mean, so a lot of the guys don't want to come forward because they are straight, but people will perceive that they're gay because of what it is. Or they are gay and they don't want people to know that. So there's just so many stigmas related in there. So that's a real passion for both of our advocates, but particularly one so they've been doing a lot of studies and trying to get in, find ways that we can reach out to these guys and make it easier for them to come forward and get services.
Do you have people coming into the program that maybe started out as victims and now have kind of embraced that, think it's probably okay, or been convinced that it's okay, now they are becoming the traffickers and the perpetrators?
We do have some, yes, to some extent on that question. So we have people, it's very common for someone who's being trafficked, if that keeps going on, that the pimp will then, she becomes, pardon the term, but it's bottom bitch. She becomes the bottom bitch. She then her job now is to go out and recruit others. That's not uncommon. Not necessarily because they found that they like it and it's a great lifestyle, but because it's part of the survival portion of it. Theoretically, you get others to work for you. You don't have to work so much. And there's that same coercive techniques and tactics. Once again, the earlier we can intervene, the more we can prevent that type of thing from happening, because it's part of the process as it goes on. So if we can intervene sooner, we can break that cycle.
I guess maybe where I was headed with that is someone who you would characterize as a trafficker now, do they come into a program like this realizing the error of their ways and want to get help to change it? Does that happen at all with any degree of frequency, or are they pretty much resigned to the law enforcement action against to be able to catch them? Correct.
Good question. The ones we're currently working with, we don't. There's one that we don't bring to the office because we believe she's still recruiting. Most of them that we're working with are not recruiters, or traffickers, so that's nice. Are you asking if they're trying to get out of legal things because of it?
So say somebody who would meet a legal definition of a trafficker, your organization or someone else, a friend, a teacher, minister, whatever, convinces them that what they're doing is wrong. They seek help and services to get out of the line.
I would say that that is happening nationwide. I'm seeing some of that at some of the restoration places we're working with. There still may be consequences they have to pay legally, but it is very common, just like abuse cycles for any other type, it's very common for somebody who's been trafficked then to go on and start trafficking. So it is possible that traffickers also were victims, but once again, there's still legal ramifications and moral ramifications for what they're doing. So we do, we let law enforcement know, though, if there's somebody that they're working with that's in the loop and they want help, we're there for them, even if they don't claim themselves as a victim, because most of these kids won't, or adults that we're working with. And most of them are not ready to talk about who their traffickers are either. So that's something that comes with a longer trust relationship, and we're working with law enforcement hand in hand trying to build those trusts better. But there's literal life and death consequences if they share. And then for some of them it might be family members. So there's a whole other list of consequences there. And for some of them it's gang. And we had one young lady that word got out that she was talking about a whole other crime, and she got a green light, a hit put on her. We had to hide her away. So we've seen it firsthand. The threats are real. So the more the community can get involved, the better law enforcement is equipped to be able to try and get to the actual bad guys that are the root of it.
Are you doing any work on the other side, the lack of better word, the buyer side of the transaction?
Our heart is to do that, but we have to focus in somewhere, and since we're currently working about 70 hours a week on just the survivor portions, on our website we have information and resources to direct people for people who are purchasing, people who are already, in depths of pornography, which then tends to lead to buying in person. So there's resources on our website, but we don't have a lot of resource potential right now. If anybody wants to join us and take on that task, we would be more than glad to help.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So you didn't need Commissioner back here. We use all the time. It was very good. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Very good information.
Close it there.
Morning, Carly.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Families Employee Service Award, Carly.
So last week we presented a recommendation to discontinue the annual awards program in its current form due to some legislative and administrative concerns. We also recommended that the board base future replacement awards programs on contemporary strategies or organizational needs. During that meeting last week, you'll recall board members expressed a desire to discontinue the Safe Driving Awards because they are not acceptable to all job categories, as well as the attendance awards due to the non-compliance with upcoming legislation. The board did identify length of service as a great value to the county and component to continue recognizing, and had directed HR to draft an updated policy maintaining the spirit of the length of service awards component of that program while addressing some of the concerns that were discussed. We have brought for the board's consideration today a policy we believe achieves the objectives set by the board last week by maintaining the spirit and intent of the existing length of service awards program with a few modifications, as was indicated in the read ahead. I will reiterate that the draft policy had gone out to all of the elected officials and department heads, and comments were received. There were a couple suggestions that were then rolled into the policy that you have before you today. Can answer any questions, or?
Do you have any thoughts or questions? I know we had some last week. You had a chance to look at it?
Okay, my name's Peter Mackinder. I'm the chief appraiser for the county. I just want to thank you for taking the time, and Carly as well, for the consideration of this. And I think the changes and suggestions that have been made are well received by the employees. So thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Christina Carmona, Franklin County Prosecutor's Office, and I spoke last week, and I'm still kind of trying to understand. I was told it's not a financial issue. The reason why they wanted to take away some of the time from the long-time employees, and I'm still trying to understand is it because of staffing?
We're not taking away the longevity.
Well, they are, according to the new one. For the 30-year, I'm just talking for the 7.5 employees, not the 8-hour, the 7.5. There's 22.5 hours less for the way it's written now. Is that how you figure it?
What the new policy does, which was recommended by one of our elected officials to address one of the concerns we had discussed last week, was the ability to schedule additional time off in offices where long-term employees already accrue a rapid amount of leave. And so to mitigate that, the last couple tiers of service awards had been the equivalent of 8 and 10 days, I believe. The recommendation was to level that off so that there's still a week's worth of leave awarded for those last couple of 5-year increments, so it's still recognition of the service, but eases that administrative concern of being able to schedule that time equitably within the office.
So for the 30 years, it's decreased what was written previously, and what the new proposal is. There's 22.5 hours less for the 30 years, and 37, which is half of the loss, 37.5 for the 35-year. So I'm thinking, okay, if this is a staffing issue, it really only affects 2 people out of the 343 employees. And if you look at 15 years down the line, if these people are still here, it still only affects 44 of the 343 employees, which are from a multitude of different offices. So I would like you to consider not taking away the hours, and if it's a staffing issue, then perhaps if you're over a certain amount of vacation hours, given the option for the employee to cash out those extra hours for longevity. Because as I stated last week, I just think it's really important for long-term employees to get recognition, because we don't get cost of living, and I really do value working for the county, and I appreciate all of the difficulties you guys have.
How much vacation does a 35-year employee have normal by that time?
It really depends. I've been here 20 years, and mine are minimal, because I believe it's important to take vacation because of the job I do. I work with victims, so to take care of me, I need to have time away. Also, I've got health issues, so a lot of times I'll use my vacation for sick leave when my sick leave gets low. Some people that are never gone, they may have a lot.
I'm not talking about accumulated. I'm just talking about what is a 35-year employee have on the books for vacation.
They accrue, I believe, just over the equivalent of 2 days a month.
16 point something a month is what I get right now for 20 years. 16, yeah.
So just over
37.5 is 15.625. You get 5 weeks a year.
Thanks.
And no more after 15 years.
Okay.
The longer the service, there's no more recognition. Other than these awards.
Yeah. And so if you take the awards away, really the long-term employees have nothing to compensate for that.
So what you're thinking is the longer you work, the more you get, even after those 30 years. 25, 30,
Right.
They should be even more added to it.
Correct. And that's how it has been since I've worked here. Anyway, that is my I would just like you to consider that as a possibility if it's a staffing issue, possibility of letting people, if they have excess hours, maybe cashing out that week or 2 weeks or whatever they're being offered, so, or allowed.
What is the cash out program now?
We don't have a leave cash out program.
Even at the end, if you're moving out of the county?
When you separate employment, depending on the nature, notice, there's stipulations around it, your vacation hours are cashed out. These would be personally, right, these would not be, because the intent is that the award is leave hours, not to be a cash value. That's how it has been.
Hello, Patty Severance, Prosecutor's Office. I am really confused by this because a 15-year employee makes the same vacation as a 35-year employee. So why are we docking at 30 and 35? Is it your age? I mean, that's kind of what I'm looking at. Is that why? Who's getting targeted here?
I don't think anybody's getting targeted.
Well, if you're not, you're only looking at people that are here 30, 35 years. They are going to be a lot older than people that are here 15 years, and they're making the same vacation. So why are we only looking at 30 and 35 years? Instead of, I mean, really then you should be going back to 15, and because they're making the same amount of vacation. It doesn't make sense to me why we're doing it. If it isn't financial, if it isn't staffing, what is it? Why are we looking at just people that have so much longevity?
What I understand from some of the elected is staffing.
But then why aren't we looking at people that have 15 years? They have the same amount of vacation. We quit accruing at 15 years. So whether I'm here 15 years or 35 years, I'm only going to get 15 point something. Only, I mean, it's a lot. I'm not saying only a month, 2 days. So I'm not understanding the issue. Why does it affect when you're at 35 or 35 year employee, but not at 15 if you have the same amount of vacation?
The concern, as I understand it, from the departments is scheduling an additional week. What it does is it levels off at a week's worth of hours awarded. The difficulty from departments has come in scheduling someone an additional 2 weeks of leave for the awarded leave in addition to their accrued vacation. So that's levels off, so you still get an additional 1 week of leave awarded for hitting that additional 5-year milestone, but it mitigates some of that concern with scheduling an additional 2 weeks for an individual who hits that milestone.
Right, but that's personally you're changing it to. Again, that's another ding where everybody else is still getting vacation time, but at 30, 35, you're suddenly now you're getting personally but not vacation time.
Help me understand the distinction for an individual between personal and vacation.
Personal leave, the rules around personal leave are different than they are around vacation leave. Personal leave is not, it's use it or lose it within the year that it's earned. And that was, an employee recommendation to mitigate the concern around people receiving these, vacation hours awarded and then cashing them out upon separation because we weren't distinguishing between these awarded vacation hours and accrued vacation hours. And so that was.
It just seems like this is it's a personal attack on people that are older in the county. And I know you guys probably don't see it that way, but that's how I personally see it. That when I'm getting older and I'm trying my best to be here and do everything I can for you, now suddenly you're hitting me and taking that back. Where you're not anybody else, you're just doing really a protected class. Anyway, I thank you and you know, I hope it works out for everybody.
Thank you.
Well, when I did see this, I will say, first thing I looked at was why isn't there an increment from 25, 30, 35? And I figured there's a reason.
There's still a week's worth of leave awarded at 25 years, an additional week's worth awarded at 30 years, and an additional week's worth awarded at 35
So that
years.
25, let's say stays at 40, but 35 really should be 80. You said there's an additional week? Or an additional week on top of what the regular?
You receive that allocation in the year following when you hit the milestone. So if I had my 25th anniversary today, for 2018, I receive a week's worth of leave.
Right.
If somebody hits their 30th anniversary today, they receive a week's worth of leave for use in 2018, in addition to what they already received the year following when they hit their 25th anniversary.
Okay, in addition, that's the thing.
Well, you receive it at every milestone for use in the year. So it's not like you sit and bank it, but you've received that awarded benefit at that last increment.
So this is not saying that 25 years old, you just leave blank and say that's it for from now on?
No, no, no.
Okay, you get that addition.
You get the week again in 5 years.
I think that's good. I think
Is
that's
what that is.
that's good.
If I could just follow up real quickly. I don't understand the issue of the additional benefit not being received by the employees that have been here over 15 years. They are receiving another week at 20, another week at 25, another week at 30, and another week at 35 if they've been here.
So that's a clarification we just got there.
The other thing is too, you know, if we are a 15-year longer tenured employee at the county, we're receiving 5 weeks already, plus another week would be 6 weeks. Most of your people that are in these positions are mid to upper level management positions, and frankly, with the staffing issues that we have had, and potential staffing issues to come, additional leave time to have us adequately get the job done that we're presented with now, I think this solution is more than adequate. I think sometimes as employees we fail to realize that the county is not here for our benefit. Our responsibility is like any employee to do the job that the employer has tasked us to do, and that is in our case to value property downstairs, and we'll continue to do that. But to think that we should be further compensated because of our tenure, I don't agree with that stance. I think the idea of personal leave instead of annual leave is justified, and I think the consideration that's been given to this matter is well founded, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Do you have a comment?
You know, I appreciate everybody's concern, what they're saying. As a department head, I hear from all different staff members about different issues. The issue that we have in ours, and with certainly the removal of the safe driving, we have employees in ours that do get the safe driving in the past, also the no sick days, and then of course on top of that getting the longevity leave. One of the issues that some people aren't really talking about is we have a lot of employees that do have sick leave maxed out, and they do max out their annual leave, and it becomes very difficult for them to even use all of the leave they get, especially from the non-bars, because they don't get their annual leave over 270 converted into VIVA. So it becomes very difficult for them, and I think that's something that's probably hasn't been discussed. I think this is a very good compromise. I think that some of our employees will be certainly grateful to be getting the week regardless. I know I look really young, but I'm going to be going on my 30 years with the county. And I'll be honest with you, it's just very darn difficult to use all the leave time that we get anyways. And 2 weeks to me as personal leave would just be losing it. A week is a little bit more manageable because, like you said, you got to use it or lose it. So you're going to use that first before you lose your annual leave. So I know there's going to be people in the county that feel that there's winners and there's losers. But certainly I've talked to Carly myself, and really based on the amount of leave, because we don't want to deny people annual leave. If they come to us, we do our best to schedule. But the reality of it is really for about every 1.5 employees to 2 employees that we have, just to accommodate the leave time that they get, we almost have to hire 1 full-time employee to do that, and that's especially evident on our road crew. So, I don't think leave time, I get it, for some people, it's maybe a little lower than they would like to have on their leave time, but it does definitely create some issues from a management and of course added cost to all of what we do. The department's trying to make sure you have schedules, so you get departments that are having to hire half-time employees, part-time employees, and even in our case, I can guarantee you that in some aspects of our job, of our work that we do out of Public Works, we have probably 2 extra employees that if we didn't have the amount of leave time, we certainly could justify doing the work that we're asked to do by the board with less people. So I appreciate the work that Carly and the board and Keith have put into this. I think it's a very good thing. People are still being recognized for their time here. And, I know people, we don't get the bonuses like you can get on the private side, but I knew that when I applied for this job almost 30 years ago, that I was working for the public and trying to do the best job with their resources. These aren't our resources, and I think that recognizing people with even a week's worth of time is very good. That to me it's certainly adequate. So appreciate your time.
Anything else? Anybody? Commissioner?
Nothing else.
Let's have a resolution in front of you. I would. That explanation as far as a week on top of a week on top of a week, it's still getting at 35 years, getting an extra 3 weeks vacation.
Okay, well, Mr. Chairman, I move that we accept the annual awards policy here, the additional work hours, and there's a time schedule here listed that we approve. And I think that's enough information for that motion.
Second? Favor?
Aye.
Thanks, Carly, for your work.
Thank you. And I do just want to reiterate that this new policy will take effect November 1st of this year, so it will not have an impact on the awards that we will be administering for the period through October 31st of 2017. So we will still be processing awards for safe driving, attendance, and length of service for this awards period for use in 2018. So we'll be working on getting that together for the board's approval in the coming months. Thank you.
Thank you. That brings us down to public comment. Any further comments? Seeing none, let's pay the bills.
We have 3 vouchers. And so the first one, which is the fund expenditures, the bottom line is $1,161,930. about $700.17, and there's 3 signatures on there. If you looked at it, any questions, anything you see, okay, good. Not Heath and Mason signing is all approved. I move second.
All in favor?
Aye. The second voucher I have is for funds for salary carrying payroll and emergency management payroll. Grand total is $713,444.27, and they have been approved by Jeff Earhart, Robin Ramirez.
Second. All in favor?
And the third one is vouchers, also for funds for county road payroll, for county roads payroll, and motor vehicle payroll, and bottom line $143,497.57. Also, this is signed by Jeff Earhart and also Robert Ramirez.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
That brings us down to our huge consent agenda.
And Mr. Chairman, I have here, let's see what we have on the agenda, make sure we make sure. We have 3? No, what do I have here?
We have 4.
Yep, there's 4. Okay, most of them are 3 of our meetings, and the one's a national adoption day proclamation. So we have 4 here, and I approve the consent agenda 1 through 4.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
I'm sorry. Okay. I thought I had to check all the texts. Is there not a proclamation that goes with this?
Scary anyway, isn't it?
Keith, what do you have for us today?
Just a couple of things. Benton County Commissioners have requested a bi-county meeting to discuss latest adventures on juvenile justice center. Going to the table for you to find dates that.
I just a second ago, from Mary Lou that they can make it on November 9th, there's May the 29th.
Okay.
Of November?
I'm checking your calendar so that we can confirm the availability. That's what we.
I don't think so. I don't think 29th will work. I think I'm going to be at Bristol.
Franklin County Board of Commissioners meeting. At this point, usually there's a lot of meetings.
Which one?
29th.
Of what?
November 29th. That's all I've got is the meeting.
Board of Commissioners. Do they have time on the
You're
29th?
not in November.
Yeah.
AM or PM, we can't do AM because
So you
of
go
that.
Wednesday? Oh, I'm sorry.
The afternoon of the 29th, is that available?
Yes,
Don't you go to the
I do, but I'll have to get it as early as we can so I can get over to this school that night.
What was the other 30? 30's empty for me.
no, 28th or
28.
28th PM.
28th would work.
That would work for me. PM.
That would actually work better.
28th PM.
Thank you. That's all I need. Just confirm dates.
As soon as we're done here, I'm going to be on the road for Olympia for Bristol, or for crab board. So I'll be in Olympia for tonight, tomorrow night, Friday. So
I'm going to be out of the office Friday for a funeral going on.
anything else for the good of the board? If nothing, we are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.